I'm Ken Klippenstein with TYT Investigates. I'm here to talk to you about Trump's military parade for the 4th of July and why it's so dangerous. There's a lot of hay being made of the parade, but I think they're overlooking one aspect of it that's particularly insidious. And that was a law, that is a law called Posse Comitatus. That's what I want to talk about. Posse Comitatus, some of you might be familiar with it. It was a law passed in 1878, over 100 years ago, under President Rutherford B. Hayes, and it limited the ability of the federal military to enforce laws on U.S. soil. Why is that important? Why is the law over 100 years ago relevant today? Well, the reason they did it then was so that the military doesn't overstep, its enforcement authority. And if you have the military running around on U.S. soil, that's going to have a detrimental effect on democracy. And people are afraid to, go to the polls for fear that, if they have an outstanding warrant, or maybe you're a racial minority and you're just afraid of cops. Can't blame you. We found that studies show that that can depress turnout. Now imagine what having an M1 Abrams tank could have on democracy. You see a barrel that could blast a shell through a cement wall. Like, what do you think that's gonna? I mean, that scares people. That I would think that that would have a chilling effect on people's willingness to go out and perhaps demonstrate or whatever. Now, I don't want to overstate the case. I don't think the government, I don't think there's going to be a coup on the 4th or anything like that. But I think what we're seeing is a gradual infringement of, sort of democratic norms that exist to protect democracy, because democracy is frail. And this isn't the only example under Trump or under an American administration in recent history. So Trump has also militarized the border, using military to try to enforce border laws. That's another example of it. And there have been a ton since 9/11. All of this has a gradual, you know, detrimental effect on on democracy and on a free society. So let's talk about the 4th of July parade a bit. He's going to be having M1 Abrams tanks. These are literally the tanks we had in Iraq during the invasion. He's going to have other military vehicles, as well as warplane, like fighter jet flyovers. I mean, it's almost like something you'd see in North Korea. And again, I don't want to equate the two, because it's not like he's going to be rounding people up. Well, if you're not a documented person, you won't anyways. But we're not the point. We're not at the point. It's not 1984 yet, but it's cause for concern, I think, because this is not something you ordinarily see. And a report in CNN today showed that there were some, senior military officials that were concerned about what this meant. And I presume military officials are not these far left kind of like dovish figures. So if they're concerned about what this means, that I think that's something that we should pay attention to. There are laws in place, not just posse comitatus. And I should stress that it's not like they'll be enforcing laws on U.S. soil. I think it's just an erosion of these norms. But what the military officials that CNN cited were concerned about is they're concerned that there will be a politicization of the military. So Trump wants to, according to the report, pose next to some military generals. And that's going to send a message to a lot of people in this country, is that the Republican Party is with the military and the military is with the Republican Party. And I think that's problematic. It's not just untrue in terms of how poorly they fund the Veterans Affairs Administration and other things like that, but it's just not things you're supposed to mix. That's not how a free society works. Let's see what else here I wanted to mention. The Republican National Committee is going to be distributing tickets in a special VIP area. Further suggests that they're mixing federal government, military with political stuff. And they'll be using $2.5 million from the National Parks Fund to fund this entire thing. National parks are already, in trouble with money. Every time we have a shutdown, we see how much they're pinching to try to get enough people to maintain these facilities. I think that's tragic they're doing that. And apparently that's not even enough money for the event. They say that this was planned so poorly and at last minute that they don't even have the resources needed for it. So they're probably going to take even more money, God knows from where. But all of this is just characteristic Trump, poorly planned, questionably legal, violating norms of free societies. Again, I don't want to overstate what this means. I don't think there's going to be a coup or anything like that, but it's just something that we need to, pay close attention to, because if he is able to get away with this without much in the way of public pushback, what else is he going to try to do? Um, let's see here. And something that was kind of dispiriting to me was the opposition's response. Guess what they're doing in response to it? What would you think? I had hoped there'd be protests saying, you know, we don't want a strongman figure. We don't want the military um, becoming politicized. Well, what I'm saying, Code Pink is going to fly the big orange Trump in a diaper balloon. That's the opposition, and it's like, okay, maybe that's funny. I don't find it funny. Some people might find it funny, but it's like, what message? How is that disputing Trump in a way that's going to appeal to people? It's just kind of saying he's a doofus or something. Like, there's so much you could be criticizing the money he's using for this coming from the public parks and what that's going to mean. You could talk about the insane border detention stuff that the majority of the country is opposed to. You could talk about the tax cuts for billionaires, for big corporations, and instead it's just a big orange Trump in a diaper. Like, come on, guys. There's so much. This is an opportunity to put air out grievances and potentially have a sympathetic audience, and they're just doing this like it's some kind of game. And then the other thing that was kind of dispiriting to me was veterans can be handing out USS John McCain T-shirts that say John McCain, and it's like, guys, McCain voted for most of Trump's legislation. Obviously, the media portrayed him as some kind of maverick, but that's not borne out by the facts. He voted for so much of what Trump wanted to do. Maybe in a couple cases opposed it, but this is not. I don't get how you're standing up to the leader of the military. It's like, come on, guys. We got to do better than this. There's so much that people can be hitting him on politically that's not popular, and it's not this stuff. So, once again, I'm Ken Klippenstein with TYT Investigates. Thanks a lot for joining.